All right, attendance code 2040. I'll leave that up for a little bit. Looks like some of you are still getting signed in here. I just want to welcome you to lesson 5 today. So a lot of your class preparation focused on flight environment, specifically the airport environment as well. Your assignment was probably one of the bigger assignments, going over all the signs, markings, lights, visual guidance to the runway. So hopefully you did a good job on that. I'll get those scores taken care of in e-learning today. But it's very important to understand how to get around on the ground. As you start going into the bigger and bigger airports, there will be more signs or more markings or different types of lights that you will encounter. So you need to be familiar with them. You'll get more familiar, obviously, as you start IOE training and you get that big job. But we don't want things to be a complete surprise to you. You don't want to look at the captain next to you and say, gee, what are those red and yellow lights on the taxiway? You should know, oh, those are lead-on lights or lead-off lights. You want to really impress the captain that you're going to be with. So today we're going to spend a bit of time with some of the airport operations, and then we have a couple group activities planned for today. One of the group activities is called the taxi game. It's going to be moving around on an airport. And the other one's just going to be a general flight information game based on the stuff that we've been going over today. So getting started, right? Attendance code is still up there, 2040 for anybody coming in here. We're going to begin with land and hold short operations. The FAA is very much driven by safety culture, first of all, but efficiency of operations next. And the number of operations that they can safely conduct at an airport is very important. Helps prevent congestion, but also helps keep the traffic moving so there isn't conflicts. So the number of takeoffs and landings that they can conduct at an airport can be increased if they allow operations from other runways. And sometimes these other runways, they might intersect each other, or they might have part of their approach path that intersects each other. So we have to have some rules in place in order to allow these operations to occur in a safe manner. So hence we have the land and hold short operation. Got a discussion board here for you for any questions. So land and hold short. The best use of it is landing and holding short of another runway. We do have an official land and hold short operation at Battle Creek, landing runway 5 left, hold short of runway 31. You probably haven't received one of those clearances. I haven't heard it used in a long time here at Battle Creek, mainly because we have the parallel runway. We heard it quite often when we were operating with just the 2 runways here. But you could also land and hold short of an intersecting taxiway. And we used to have that here at Battle Creek when we had the A-10 Warthog detachment here for the Air National Guard base. They would often land 2-3 right and taxi, they use full length 2-3 right for landing, and then they would use the Delta taxiway, getting back to their ramp base. And the occasional clearance to a Western airplane was land 2-3 right, hold short of Delta. Delta is like 7,500 feet down the runway, so it was never a problem on that. We don't have that point down there anymore. And then the other one is a designated point, typically where a runway approach or departure path comes over a taxiway. And if you were to allow another aircraft to taxi through that area, it would be a conflict to a landing or departing aircraft. So those are 3 areas that we're going to be landing and holding short of. So let's go over a few of the requirements, looking first at weather. So if you read in the AIM, it didn't really give you the best guidance for what are the weather requirements. The advisory circular had some better information for it. Dealing with the clouds and visibility, first of all, we can't be less than basic VFR. And of course, when I use that term basic VFR, that's the cutoff point between IFR and VFR operations. So we're looking at 3 miles minimum and 1,000 foot ceilings minimum. So basic VFR operations must be at the airport for land and hold short operations to be conducted. Then we look at anything that might cause the aircraft to either fly faster or have difficulty decelerating. Right? So factors such as wind shear. A crew will fly at a faster speed to get through a wind shear zone. And that means longer landing distance for them. Okay. So we can't have any reports in the last 20 minutes for wind shear. A tailwind operation gives you a faster ground speed, hence more runways needed for landing. So there can't be a tailwind operation when they have land and hold short occurring. And then finally, contamination of the runway. So we're looking at snow, ice, slush, could even be standing water, but possibly debris. I'm thinking like leaves, things of that nature there. So we can't have anything that's going to impact the wheel's ability to grip the runway. So we're talking about the coefficient of friction here. It's all about getting the aircraft stopped before a designated point. So those are weather requirements for a Part 91 operator. If you are operating as a commercial operator, there are some different weather requirements, but we're just going to focus on Part 91 here. There are restrictions. First of all, this is considered an advanced maneuver, so student pilot solo operation cannot accept land and hold short. They haven't proven themselves yet. Now, if a clearance is accepted, you must adhere to it. You can't change your mind and then blow through the holding point. You have to land and hold short if you accept the clearance. Interestingly enough, a go-around is still allowed. A go-around would be allowed for safety reasons only. Obviously, ATC will not be happy with you, and be prepared to have them very much upset at you, as you fly upwind, crosswind, downwind, base, and final. But it's allowed for safety reasons, right? And of course, that's always up to the pilot and command. You just can't do a go around because you feel like it. It has to be a real reason. But of course, you as a pilot, you may reject a land and hold short clearance. The overall reason, and this would be the test question reason here, is if safety is compromised in any way, then you have to reject the clearance. But you can reject the clearance for any reason you want. They are not required. Right? Some flight operations have it in their ops manual that they will never accept a land and hold short clearance. In order to conduct that land and hold short operation, I need to have certain information. Most notably, how much landing distance do I have? And it's going to be found in the chart supplement. that will be associated with each airport. So the idea is, as you are preparing in the pre-flight stage, you are determining if your airport has land and hold short operations out there, and you become familiar with which runways and the available distance. It's important to understand your aircraft's performance versus the available landing distance. And you're probably thinking, well, what if I am going to an airport, like I'm diverting to an airport, wasn't planning on going here, I didn't do my pre-flight preparation for this diversion airport. You simply ask ATC, what's the available landing distance? And they'll let you know. And then you can either accept or reject that clearance. So we're going to do a top hat question here. And we're going to actually look up available landing distance at an airport here. So pull up your chart supplement for Detroit, Coleman Young Airport, Delta Echo Tango Airport. Available landing distance, if you're landing on runway 15, holding short of runway 725. I'll add a few more seconds here for you. I don't know if some of you are just slow getting out of the gate versus you don't know where to find your chart supplement. All right. So 4,900 feet is the correct answer there. The runway itself is 5,092 feet long, but only 4,900 feet of it is available for landing distance for land and hold short operations. It's quite possible that there was a couple typos up here on that. Can't explain the other two there, so there you go. See if you got any questions on that section there. All right, if you're not going to be able to stop at the hold short point, should you execute a go around to not violate the hold short point? I have no idea. You're probably terribly slow at that point, and I have no guidance for you on that one right there. So sorry. Wow, that's a tough point to be in. That's why it's an advanced maneuver. You got to be able to plan ahead and make it happen there. How did you find the available runway length for the hold short operation? All right. Well, let's see. Let's see if we can use some technology today. Yeah, all right. Okay, so I simply I used ForeFlight here. Okay, and in the section where I put in the Detroit Airport, I have the info tab next to weather. And if you scroll down, you'll see chart supplement, and it's listed as AFD. And you tap that, it takes you right to it. And then we can see the hold short and hold short operations on there. Just that easy. Obviously, other ways to do it would be to, if you have downloaded your chart supplement, you could have done it the harder way and gone into the chart supplement from the actual document right there. So multiple ways you can do it there in ForeFlight. Good. Any other questions? Right. Love it when technology works. All right. Air traffic control. I'm going to talk a little bit about air traffic control. There are some of you that are instrument rated in here. Several of you that are at that point of you're about to become instrument rated, and there's several of you that are still working and you're getting closer to being instrument rated. Part of being an instrument rated pilot is the expectation that you can file a flight plan and then pick up an IFR clearance on that. So we want to take a look kind of behind the scenes here of what's happening in the air traffic control world with those IFR flight plans. And we've got a ATC discussion board here for your questions. I want to just play you a quick video of how many operations a day. This is a 24-hour period. This was taken about 2015 or so. So it does give you some good information about the number of IFR operations. And keep in mind, these are, for the most part, non-ADS-B flights. Because today, ADS-B will pop up in these sort of animations. But back in 2015, we didn't have much ADS-B happening at that point. So taking a look in a 24-hour period here. Starting to get in the evening hours, and you see the East Coast dropping off. You see the red eyes from the West Coast making their way over. The cargo operators have just gone out, and now we're waking up in the morning again. Morning progressing towards the West Coast now, seeing the inbounds from Europe over Newfoundland. Seeing the flights going to and from Hawaii. All the outbounds going back to Europe. So lots of flights going. In fact, at that time they were saying 5,000 to 6,000 commercial flights a day in the United States. Either coming into the country, leaving the country, flying within the country. So that's a lot of IFR flight plans that are being processed here. So what happens to IFR flight plans when they're filed here? So let's take a peek here. Of course, we're now on the International Flight Plan form. Let's get some feedback from you on flight plans with some top hat questions, and then we'll kind of dive into what's happening behind the scenes with them. So the first question, when I file an IFR flight plan, it is transmitted to kind of like just a pre-knowledge area. You know where your flight plan goes. Okay, interesting there. So I'm just getting some feedback on that. The correct answer is it does go to the Air Route Traffic Control Center. We'll talk about that in a moment. Okay. Next question. Have you ever called flight service on the phone and filed any type of flight plan? We're talking private training, the student pilot, instrument training, IFR, VFR. All right, so I'm not surprised by this one here because there's multiple ways to get a flight plan into the system here. Calling up flight service is one of the methods there. All right. Obviously, there's no correct answer for this one, right? But you did get participation credit for it. Next question. Have you ever used a computer, not a tablet, but a computer, to file any type of flight plan? So there are methods using a computer to get that information into the system. Okay. Last one here. Have you ever used ForeFlight or an equivalent electronic flight bag to file any type of flight plan? All right, so just seeing vast majority of people like the convenience, doing it right off their ForeFlight device, that's fine. All right, so let's just kind of give me a little bit of background information, because it is hoped that you have filed an IFR flight plan at some point in your training. If you haven't done that, if you haven't either called flight service or used a device to electronically get it into the system there, you are missing out on a lot of your training. So let's take a peek here at processing this flight plan. As we said, there are multiple ways to get this information into the system. The first is by telephone. Right? I am starting to ask a new question on my stage checks. How do you call flight service on the telephone? What's the phone number? And I am starting to get people students that don't know about the 1-800-WX brief phone number. That is a surprise to me, all right? So you should know that phone number, WX brief. Call up flight service. Of course, Ledios is the contractor that provides flight service for us. You get transferred to one of their call stations. The person on the other end, the flight service specialist, types into the computer the information that you give them verbally. That information is transmitted to Air Route Traffic Control Center. We're talking about IFR flight plans now, okay, not VFR. VFR flight plan just stays in the flight service system, okay, but IFR flight plans, they go all the way to Air Route Traffic Control Center. If you choose to use a computer or electronic flight bag, let's see, through a computer, you're probably going to be using 1-800-WXbrief.com. That's Ledios, the flight service website, where you can put a flight plan in there. If you're using ForeFlight on the computer or on your tablet, you are technically using Ledios flight service anyway to get that information transmitted directly into the Air Route Traffic Control Center computer. So it doesn't matter. Flight service is merely the collection point. They transmit all of these flight plans to the Air Route Traffic Control Center. It is the job of Center to process that flight plan and make sure two aircraft do not occupy the same space at the same time. So they're verifying that you have a valid flight plan. Now, if there is conflict, someone's got to move out of the way. And that's where, when you're picking up that clearance, ATC might tell you, I have a full route clearance, advised when ready to copy. And that's where we take our flight plan and we just can, toss it in the back seat. We're not going to need that anymore because we're going to probably be on a completely different route now. Okay, that's just the way it goes in aviation. We try to plan as best we can, and sometimes it goes outside of what we planned. Once we have a viable plan, the Air Route Traffic Control Center computer then transmits that information to the facilities that need to know. Okay? So in particular, that information has to get transmitted to the facility responsible for your initial departure. Here at Battle Creek, that would be ground control. I'll go to say Kalamazoo, it would be clearance delivery. So that's what our station is pictured here, is clearance delivery station. The information gets printed on a small strip of paper and it gets inserted into that little plastic holder, and it just sits waiting for the pilot to call up clearance delivery, say I'm ready for my IFR clearance to whatever destination. And so clearance delivery will just pick up that strip. They'll read you the information. It's all the information that you need for your route. It's who you are, any special remarks you may have put in there, and they read that information to you. And then they hand off this strip to the next person who's going to be controlling you, and that is going to be ground control. And so that's going to sit in a stack waiting for you to call up ground control. Now, ground control is already planning ahead. You are departing in a certain direction, and they're going to route you to a certain runway. They've already determined which taxiways to get you over to that departure runway. You call up your ground controller, they give you the taxi clearance, and you're on your way. They're handing that strip off to the next person that's going to control you, local control. In other words, the tower controller. And again, that strip is going to sit in the bin until you call up that you're ready for departure. At that point, ATC is either going to clear you for takeoff on your IFR flight plan, or they might even come back and say clearance on request. You may hear that from time to time at Battle Creek, right? Because local control can't send you into the air unless the departure controller says it's okay to do so. They have to maintain certain mile separation and a certain vertical feet separation between aircraft. In order to do that, they have to coordinate with the radar facility. And so Battle Creek has to call Kalamazoo up or Great Lakes up and say, hey, I have Sky Bronco 45 ready to go, 2-3 right. And Kalamazoo might say, hold them, or it might say, go ahead and release them, runway heading. You know, various instructions I might give you. Then you get your clearance for departure. From the control tower, you are on your way. You're in the air, you're airborne. Of course, tower control only goes out roughly 5 miles, roughly 3,000 feet above the airport. It varies, of course. And then they have to send you or hand you off to radar control, departure. And so you have a radar controller now who is helping you get on your way. If it involves a handoff to the next facility, that facility has your flight plan already. They got that stripped themselves. Okay. So they're just waiting for the handoff. If you're going down to, say, South Bend, you'll get a handoff to South Bend controller. What if you're going northbound? Great Lakes only goes so far to the north before they run out of their airspace jurisdiction, and then they have to send you over to Air Route Traffic Control Center. And in our area, that would be Minneapolis Center, going to the north. They'll say you're going up to Traverse City, you're going to be talking to Minneapolis Center all the way up until they hand you back off to Traverse City Tower. Going up to maybe the Sault Ste. Marie area, you'll actually get handed off to Toronto Center. And then you'll be terminated from radar service, and you'll be able to do your landing there up at Sault Ste. Marie. All right, that's kind of just the background on center of the whole ATC system there, the background that's going on. So you should have a general idea of what's happening behind the scenes there. Let's concentrate a little bit on surface movement. When it's time to move on the surface of an airport, there are some things that you either must do or cannot do, and starting with receiving a clearance. Before you taxi onto any taxiway that's part of the movement area, before you taxi onto or across a runway, before you take off or before you land, you must have clearance from the tower. So kind of seems like a little bit of a natural thing, you know, kind of a little bit of a review here, that's fine. But we do have our movement area designated by the boundary lines on Alpha 1, 2, 3, and 4 taxiways. So our ramp, even though they call it a non-movement area, that just means it's a non-ATC controlled movement area. ATC doesn't control our ramp, so we can move around, but once we get up to that non-movement area boundary line on any of the alphas, now we need that clearance. If we're going to taxi across a runway, we need a crossing clearance. Each and every runway you come up to cross over, you must have a crossing clearance. Notice that red sign with the numbers on it indicating runway direction. Remember, that's not a runway designation sign. That's an actual runway holding position sign. It's a mandatory instruction, red background. The mandatory instruction is to stop unless you have clearance. It doesn't matter if that runway is an active, an inactive, or a closed runway. If it's marked as a runway, it is part of the movement area. You must have clearance to cross. That means even during the air show, when we cross the parallel and crosswind runways, you have to have a clearance to get over that closed runway. You got tents and airplanes parked on the runway, you still need clearance to go over it. ATC could tell you to use a runway as part of your taxi route, and they may say taxi down, runway 23 right to Echo. Or they might even say back taxi, runway 5 left to Echo. Both of those are clearances onto a runway. Very important you understand that. All right, so that's just getting airborne. Okay, when you have to have that clearance to land, but after landing, ATC is expecting us to turn at the first available taxiway. Obviously, when your speed permits. That might seem like a no-brainer to some of you, but I have seen several pilots actually stop the airplane on the runway, and they're trying to get clearance from ATC while they're on the runway. It's like, no, you got to clear the runway. That's the expectation. You must clear the runway. And after landing, you can't turn onto another runway. You have to have clearance to do so. Remember, go on, mouse, there we go. Remember, if you're going to taxi onto any runway after landing, you have to have clearance. So for those that are missing Echo, landing on 23 right, runway 13 is not an automatic option for you. If you know you are going to miss Echo, but you can make the runway 13, you call ATC up. You request it. Don't come to a stop on the runway waiting for ATC to clear you to it. It doesn't work that way. Don't automatically turn onto it. Right? That would be a runway incursion, and you can get written up for that. That would be one of those things where you would do the NASA form, right? Because you could be violated for a runway incursion. All right, those are some of the things you should do, should not do. So let's take a peek at these things here with the top hat question. So your clearance, taxi to runway 29 via Lima, Papa, back taxi runway 22. I'm going to show you the graphic here in just a moment. Taxi to runway 29er via Lima, Papa, back taxi runway 22. At which point is a pilot required to hold short? Lima, Papa, back taxi 22, assigned runways 29 for departure. And you mostly said point A. A few of you said point B. So the correct answer is A. All right. So point A, we see is on runway 22. You haven't given clearance to back taxi on runway 22. So we can't go past the solid line. That hold short line is for runway 29er there. Point B is the hold short line for runway 22, but we do have clearance to back taxi on runway 22. Always got to pay attention to these hold lines. In order to go across the double solid line, you have to have clearance. That is the reg, okay? All right, just making sure we understand what is an active runway. Any runway that ATC is using for takeoff and landing purposes. If ATC is using multiple runways, then they're all considered active. We used to have a controller here. About 5 years ago, he retired. And he would use all runways, both parallels and the crosswind runway. It was not uncommon to start off on one of the parallel runways, get switched to the different parallel, and then maybe do your final landing on the crosswind runway. I loved him. It was great. Students, they were stressed out with him. Some instructors wouldn't send their students solo, first solo, when he was up there controlling. But he was one of those controllers that really loved to push 10 around. Okay. All right, our last section here, and then we'll take a quick break, is on flight information. Of course, there's lots of information sources out there. One of our most important sources is either the weather briefing from a flight service specialist or getting an official weather briefing on a digital device. Remember, official weather briefing is something that it's recorded the information that you obtained, as well as either who you are or what airplane you're flying. So let's talk about flight information. In particular, I want to concentrate on notices to air missions, NOTAMs, okay? Yep, the name did get changed a little while ago. Notices to air missions is what we are calling them now. Same information. They've been broken down into distinct keyword areas to help you sort through the information better, to help you identify things that are critical for flight safety versus nice to know information, versus this could be just absolutely useless information for you, but they still have to give you a NOTAM. A lot of these keywords have an abbreviation to it, so you need to know these abbreviations. They are very simple ones here for you to understand. But these keywords help you identify what this NOTAM is going to be all about. It might be information about the aerodrome itself, about a runway. It could be information about airspace change. It could be information about obstacles. It could be information about nav age or other communication outages. So it really helps you focus when you're reading through NOTAMs, what's important, what's not so important there. And then the NOTAM itself may have contractions. These were meant, back in, I don't know, 1940s, 1950s, when you transmitted on what they would call a teletype machine. Very slow transmission rates, so they had to abbreviate in order to get the information out. We still use those abbreviations. Are we ever going to move away from abbreviations? And the answer is no. The whole world uses these abbreviations. We'd have to change the entire world, and that's just not going to happen. So in order to learn these contractions, some of them are very simple. Others, you just need to look them up because at least a couple times. In your AIM, there is a table, 5-1-2, for those NOTAM contractions. So if you have your AIM with you, whether it's paper or digital, why don't you please get that out, as this will be very useful to you. Some of you have the AIM through ForeFlight, some of you have a separate app, some of you have a paper copy of it. It doesn't matter, but we'll be in section or Chapter 5 of the AIM, Section 1. This is on pre-flight preparation. You'd be in, I think, subparagraph 3 here, but the table is 5-1-2. You definitely get that out because we are going to reference it with a couple top hat questions. But pretty much all of the abbreviations you are going to see in a NOTAM are in this list of contractions here. Now, occasionally I have found other abbreviations that are not in the list, but for the most part, they're in here. And a lot of them are straightforward. Others, unless you've seen it a couple times, you may not recognize what it is. Okay, so let's try some top hat questions. First one, hold on. No, I'll tell you, okay, yeah, let's hit this slide first. Let's talk about the NOTAM format, and then we'll get into those different contractions there. So a NOTAM format for you is generally the same in terms of a header, a body, and a footer information. Let's start with the header over here. The first part is the accountability area. It's a general area. It helps ATC or the FAA keep track of where NOTAMs are originating. It's like a file cabinet. You go to a file cabinet, it's got 4 drawers on it. This would be like, it's in drawer number 3. It's just pointing you where to look for it. The next bit is going to be the month that it was issued and the sequence number for that accountability area. Now, accountability area might have several different airports associated with it. You think about the Kalamazoo Airport. Kalamazoo is an accountability area. It would encompass the Kalamazoo Elmina Airport, the Triple H Airport, and the Newman's Field Airport, in addition to the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport. Multiple ones. So this particular accountability area is Lansing, and then we look at the specific location of 3 Tango Echo. It's in Tecumseh, the Al Myers Airport. And at that airport, now we move into the body and we see our keyword is runway. We have a runway NOTAM. So this is one of those keywords. This is critical information. This could make a go, no-go decision for you. This NOTAM could make the airport usable or unusable, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And it's saying that runway 1836 is a CLSD, it's a DLY, and it's an SS-SR on that. Some of these NOTAM contractions are very straightforward, and these are some of those that are straightforward, but if you didn't recognize any of these, you've got table 512 to take a peek at. Right? So the condition here is it's closed daily, sunset to sunrise. Now the footer is going to contain the effective time of this. And the effective time format is up here, a 2-digit year, a 2-digit month, a 2-digit day, and then the 4-digit Zulu time. So looking at this NOTAM, the runway is closed daily, sunset to sunrise, starting on the year 2017, the month of September, on the 12th day at 23:25 Zulu. That corresponds to the sunset time on that day. And this NOTAM is going to continue until the year 2018 on January 1st at 13:04 Zulu. That's sunrise on that day. You can use it in the daytime, obviously, but you can't go at night during those days there. Okay. So now let's take a peek at some questions here. You got your AIM table 512 open. ABN. What is ABN? Okay, Aerodrome Beacon. All right. I would have also accepted Airport Beacon as well. And I guess computer doesn't like some of the different ways you correctly spelled these words there. Those would all be correct. So I'll go back in and make sure you get points for it. Yeah, all those will be correct. Okay, one more for you. PCT. All right, PCT is percent. Oh, 8 of you, I don't know why you're getting those wrong, so I'll fix it. Anyway, that's that. You'll need to reference that later. Let's just see if anyone has any questions. Nope. Okay. So tell you what, let's go ahead and take a break. We'll do about a 5-minute break. When you come back, get into your groups, please. So come 5-minute break, come back into your groups.
So that was a academic appointment with you on Saturday on ETA. Lesson 1 on ETA.
Oh, lesson 1 ground school.
Isn't that why I reconciled with my instructor though? I saw it here.
What's your question now?
Oh, just curious why it's on ETA. January 12th.
Okay, where's my top line here? Yeah, oh, ground school record. Yeah, ground schools are going to pop up there.
Even though passwords?
Yeah, behind the scenes here, you have to be added into the ETA course.
Okay.
That just happened.
Oh.
So I'm starting to populate all the attendance roles and then going to knock them down.
Okay.
So you'll see a lot more of those coming up here today. Yep.
So I was gone for the first 2 weeks of COVID. Where was it? 6 feet.
Wherever group 6 is.
Oh, I didn't know if you had like it set up in a certain spot in the room or.
Nope, I let all the captains sort that out.
I kind of had the same question, but it goes off number or like
Number.
So I'm group 10.
Okay, yep,
Thank you.
you'll find them.
Okay.
I just had this one when I redid the assignment with my instructor.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
You bet.
As long as the weather gets bad.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was pretty sad. How was the recording this weekend? Oh, it was fun.
What number are you?
Yeah, I love it.
6 or 6?
We don't know yet.
Oh, yeah, I guess I'm trying to set it up. Look at that.
Yeah.
We don't need to do it right now, but after.
I wonder where you were. I don't know.